Thank you, Madam Speaker. In June, I asked the Minister of Small Business how she can support a tax hike on capital gains that will kill jobs and destroy our entrepreneurs. Instead of hearing from the Minister of Small Business on how she was standing up for entrepreneurs in the face of this massive tax hike, the Minister of Finance rose and didn't let her answer the question. In defending this hike, the Finance Minister highlighted that the capital gains rate in Canada will be lower than the tax paid in California or New York City. However, she ignored the jurisdictions like Florida, New Hampshire, and Texas, which have zero state-level capital gains tax. A report from the Frontier Centre for Public Policy highlighted that prior to the changes announced in this year's budget, Canada's capital gains tax rate ranked 13th highest in the OECD, which was lower than the 9th-ranked United States. However, after the changes announced, Canada's rate jumped to number 3, behind only Denmark and Chile. So let's correct the record here. Canadians are now, in fact, being taxed higher on capital gains than most industrialized countries, not just the Americans, but also the French, the Finns, Norwegians, Swedes, and even the Dutch. This is what I'm hearing on capital gains. The Canadian Medical Association has said that these changes will pose a significant financial hit to doctors and may push some out of the profession or to the United States, where they can still practice medicine and pay way less tax. Business groups are saying that these changes are unwise at a time of weak productivity. More than half of small business owners believe it will affect the eventual sale of their business. And though this government claims this is a tax hike on only the wealthiest Canadians, business leaders and financial experts disagree. Focusing solely on a snapshot of the number of filers in 1 year, like this government did, gives off false information. Most people dispose of assets such as a vacation home, a small business, or farmland occasionally, not every year. Statistics Canada data confirms this. Over the years 2011 to 2021, an annual average of 44,664 tax filers reported capital gains in excess of $250,000. But they are not the same people every year. 63% of people who experience capital gains experience them only once in their lifetime. High capital gains are amongst the most economically damaging form of taxation because they reduce the incentive to innovate and to invest. This tax can penalize a lifetime of hard work. Canada is already behind all of our G7 peers for productivity. Investment money will flow out of Canada in search of better returns and increasingly go to the United States. Statistics Canada Monthly estimates of business openings and closures reported in their most recent data that 2,000 more businesses closed than opened in May. Further, the Superintendent of Bankruptcy reported a 54.7% increase in business insolvencies for the year ending on July 31st, 2024. The Minister of Small Business won't or can't raise the concerns of entrepreneurs at the cabinet table or here in the House of Commons. Instead, she sits silently while the Finance Minister claims that Canadians will somehow be better off, that our economy will somehow be better off paying these exorbitantly high taxes and having fewer job creators. In fact, since the early 2000s, the number of entrepreneurs in our country has dropped from nearly 3 in 1,000 to 1.3 in 1,000. So I'll ask the
Parliamentary Secretary to the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Well, thank you so much, Madam Speaker. And I simply can't put it any way other than to say that my Conservative colleague is obviously misinformed. When it comes to business investment, I can tell you that Canada is currently 3rd in the world for attracting foreign direct investments, and that for the very first time in our country's history. An amazing achievement that highlights the focus of our government to bring new investments into Canada. One of the problems here, Madam Speaker, is that the Conservatives are actually focusing only on the top capital gains tax rate on very large investment profits. Maybe that is what his donors are talking about, but it's certainly not what middle-class Canadians are talking about around their kitchen tables. In fact, on this subject, Conservatives never talk about regular folks making regular incomes, making regular salaries or hourly wages. Actually, a worker in Canada earning an average wage is taxed less than the average across all OECD countries. And I could tell you it's a hell of a lot lower than the 48% in Germany or the 47% tax rate in France. In his question, my Conservative colleague is not even talking about the regular capital gains tax rate, which is itself only paid by a very small sliver of well-off Canadians who are able to realize profits on their investments. No, actually, the Conservatives are talking about the very top marginal rate for capital gains, those making a profit of over $250,000 in investment profit in a single year, Madam Speaker. The definition of the 1%, and that is who the Conservatives are so very desperate to defend and make us all feel very sorry for. Madam Speaker, this is ridiculous. The fact is that the rhetoric, and if I may say the populist rhetoric, that the Conservative leader goes on tour with during the summer, which is addressed to the hardworking Canadians that work in the construction industry, that are nurses, and that are bus drivers. That speech is directed to folks right across the country. But in this House, Madam Speaker, in this chamber, it is clear who the Conservatives are defending. They are defending the top 1%. They are protecting people's stock portfolios instead of their pensions. They're defending people's stock portfolios instead of the wages of the middle class, Madam Speaker. Let that be clear.
Honourable member for Mission Matsqui Fraser Canyon.
Madam Speaker, I couldn't think of a more out-of-touch answer to the very real concerns that I raised backed by Statistics Canada data. In fact, talking about middle-class Canadians, as I outlined in my remarks, the capital gains tax will often only be paid by people once in their lifetime. 63% of Canadians only experience it once in their lifetime. Why is that significant? Because it's the farmer in Hatzic Valley who came to me, who's 80 years old, he doesn't have any children, and he wants to keep his family farm in his family. But if him and his wife are to sell the property today, which is worth a few $1 million, they will not be able to have enough money to retire and go into assisted living where they should be, because the capital gains tax increase that they're paying has completely thrown off their retirement investment. Think of the auto mechanic that invested in a property to start a business and employ people, and this government saying, no, you need to give more. That's not
The
sufficient.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.